Evening everyone, welcome to, where are we now, February's executive meeting. If we could start with any apologies for absence, please, Ms Willis.
Thank you, Chair. There are no apologies.
Very good. The minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of January 2026, am I okay to sign these? Thank you. Oh, yeah, here. Thank you. Okay, declarations of interest from anybody? No? Okay, well, if anything comes up, I'm sure we can mop it up at the time. It's okay. Public question time. Are these related to the subject we mentioned earlier? This could be quite a good time to do it, to be honest. I think it also is good in terms of the wider, if you're okay with that, Councillor Garrett. Yeah, look, why don't we do it now? So if it's okay with the officers, Councillor Garrett has some direct questions from members of the public that he has raised with me informally.
Thank you, Leader. And actually, before I do that, as I suggested, before I pose the question to the leader, I want to say something else. Many of you will know that I'm Vice Chair of Governors at Collingwood, and as well as a parent of a child there, you may also be aware that there has been an incident at the school yesterday. I appreciate this is a difficult time for the school and the wider community, and I would like to say that my thoughts are with everyone who has been affected. I felt it was important to start with this, especially as the questions I'm about to ask arose from a recent visit to Collingwood. Recently, I was invited to Collingwood College by Mrs. Ospina to speak with her Year 9 and GCSE citizenship class. As part of the active citizenship, goodness gracious, as part of the active citizenship element of their course, these students are required to work independently to advocate for tangible change. I had the pleasure of watching several groups present their projects, followed by a Q&A session, where I provided feedback and suggested potential next steps for their campaigns. Citizenship is a popular subject at Collingwood with an excellent record of academic success. Through these projects, the college is endeavouring to engage as many young people in politics as possible during these challenging times. I proposed that the students, that if they wished to take their lobbying to the next level, they could either attend a full council meeting to ask questions in person or email them to me and I would ask them on their behalf. With that in mind, I would appreciate your response to the following 3 questions which I am posing today on behalf of these students. Question number 1, what are you, the council, doing to decrease and deter the amount of fly tipping in our local area? How is the Borough Council, this is question number 2, how is the Borough Council engaging with Surrey County Council to ensure that our borough's most problematic roads are prioritised in long-term maintenance budgets and infrastructure planning? And question number 3, are you confident that the existing safety measures on the Red Road are sufficient for ensuring the safety of road users, specifically regarding to issues of speeding? I look forward to your responses.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. So first of all, I'm sure all the members of the council and the officers would like to echo what you said in your opening comments, and we'll await further details of that in due course. Secondly, thank you so much for representing the council at that meeting, but obviously in your role as a governor, and engaging with the young people on those questions. And thirdly, thank goodness they're not here on a regular basis asking questions, because those are some quite tricky ones. I don't know whether, Councillor Rise, you'd like to have a go at the fly tipping one, because you're probably a bit more across that than myself. That'd be lovely, thank you.
I can do. Firstly, thank you. I'd like to please extend my thanks to them for this question. I would say on fly tipping, earlier in this term, we increased the fines for fly tipping when found to be, when the evidence is found. Our corporate enforcement team actively investigate fly tipping, fly tips to find out who has done it, and when the evidence is found, that is pursued, and if possible, we do prosecute. We also, this was the council in the last term purchased mobile cameras which can be deployed to hotspots where there is fly tipping, and as a council we take and keep a regular kind of watch on fly tipping, and we tackle it where we can. It's a problem for all areas. However, I would say we are fortunate in Surrey Heath that we don't have a high rate of fly tipping.
Thank you, Councillor Rise. I think, Councillor Ashby, you're going to have a go at the second one, the one that we know and love at the moment, potholes.
Yeah, thank you for that, Leader. Obviously, at this time of year, when we have extremes of weather, road surfaces deteriorate and break up, and we all look to the Highways Department at County Council to repair those as quickly as possible. There is, or there appears to be at the moment, quite a backlog, and my advice to everyone is report it through Fix My Street. If you haven't used that before, someone can help you with doing that, because if it doesn't get reported, it doesn't get investigated. The County Council, in my dealings with them, are prioritising those that are a danger in the first instance. The ones that are just an irritant may take a little bit longer. As I say, I am aware that most of us who are elected representatives, either on this body or any other body, have an inbox that has lots of questions around potholes at the moment. There is a backlog. The government, central government, promised a significant amount of money to fix it. Unfortunately, that doesn't trickle down very rapidly and doesn't necessarily trickle down to this area to enable it to be repaired any quicker. So I'm told highways are on it. Let's watch this space.
Thank you, Councillor Ashby. I actually had the unusual pleasure of phoning the emergency pothole hotline. I think we had a brief discussion on this morning, Councillor Garrett, because there was one that would have been a potential injury to a cyclist in Bisley. So yes, I had the experience of going through that. I think they are struggling with the volume of reports they're getting at the moment, so let's hope the team can get on top of it. I will pick up the Red Road one. So I think members will be aware that there have been a number of fatalities on Red Road over the years. There have been a number of measures to calm speed and help drivers behave appropriately. I can't remember exactly when, but probably about 6 months ago, I think there was a consultation on dropping the speed limit in a number of areas, including Red Road, the Maltway. They've also dropped the speed limit from the Gordon's Roundabout all the way through to Knapp Hill, which I don't think is universally popular. But I don't believe the dropping of the speed limit has yet happened on Red Road, but it is, I think, due to be happening shortly. So that will hopefully help. But I think, like all things involving cars and vehicles, it is the responsibility of the driver to behave appropriately. So the more we can help with driver education, the better, and that starts with the young. So thank you very much, Councillor Garrett, for your questions, and thank you, officers, for your flexibility there, but it's felt like indirect public questions that we had there, so thank you, Councillor Garrett. So I don't think we had any more, did we, Ms Willis? No. Very good. Okay, so we'll move on to questions by members, item 5 on the agenda. Right, I think Councillor Wilson was up first, then we'll take Councillor Cope and then Councillor Rowlands, and we'll see what's left after that. Please, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Leader. As you know, the final stage, hopefully the final stage of the public consultation for the CGR recently closed. I was just wondering, would you like to congratulate the members of One Windlesham team for the fantastic way they increased public engagement and brought the whole village together and showed real community spirit and unity during the consultation? And can you give any update on the figures of engagement and voting in that? Thank you.
Thank you. The Chief Executive will get an update on the figures in a minute. I think anything that helps the public engage with the democratic process is a positive. I think we made statements, both myself and Councillor Ashby and others, in the various debates, and indeed other members of other groups as well, that we wanted to encourage the public to tell us what they wanted to do. So yes, in that regard, well done to particularly the Windlesham residents. So it appears I'm doing it. We have, in Windlesham, we had 1,331 responses, which is roughly 38.5% of the population. Sorry, the respective population involved in the consultation. In Bagshot and Lightwater, we had 332, which is 3.3%. And in the unparished areas, we had 893, which is, broadly speaking, 2%. So, yeah, they did very well compared to other areas, and I'm sure all members will want to look at the detail of the report, which was published potentially in the last few minutes in due course, and reflect on that as we have the debate coming up next week. Thank you. Councillor Cope, thanks for your patience.
Thank you. And it's actually a linked question, but perhaps on a slightly more negative note, about leaflets that were not received. And I know this was raised at the last executive. It's been raised at Audit Standards and Risk, and I just appreciate an update on the investigation into why certain areas, particularly around Camberley and where I represent, didn't receive the publicity that we had expected that they would around the CGR. I ask this as someone who actually voted against that publicity going out, but I do feel that when we vote on something at full council, it should matter, and it feels like we voted for multiple leaflets to go out, or the majority did, and that doesn't seem to have happened, and I think that's quite a significant point. So I just appreciate an update on any investigation into what's gone on there and any impact there may be on the CGR down the line.
Thank you, Councillor Cope. So I will dance around this one a little bit. So first of all, thank you for raising. It's a valid point, and I obviously observe the Audit Standards and Risk, which you chaired very well. Risk Committee. Technically speaking, this is not an executive function. Democratic Services are managing that process, so it's not really within the remit of this committee to answer that question. The second thing is that the officer's report on the whole process has literally in the last few minutes been published. So I think we need to give time for that to be properly digested, and for that then to be debated next week. I think that is the appropriate way of handling the issues you've raised. But I do understand the points you've made. Yeah. Councillor Rowlands, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to point to something that appeared in the public press from Grant Thornton, making the case that we still have not had our books cleared, as they were saying, since 2019, which came as a revelation to me. I thought that we'd got over that, but our accounts have not been cleared back to 2019. And comments were made about shortcomings in the way our accounting system had been presented. I don't know if you saw the same report, which appeared as a computer link. I'd be interested to hear your comments on that shortcoming.
So, broadly speaking, I don't think the report that ended up in Surrey Live, which I think is the one that you are quoting, is a fair representation of the discussion and the debate that was held at Audit Standards and Risk. And I don't know, Councillor Cope, you're very welcome to come in and make any observations you wish in a second on that. but I don't think it was a rounded commentary. Those of us that have been close to this saga for a while, and it's a shame Councillor Betton isn't here, who's probably the one that's been involved in the saga longest, were never of the impression this was an overnight fix. And the Grant Thornton auditors, when they engaged with us at the very beginning, were very clear that this would be an ongoing process of assurance and would take multiple years. But I have just realised that there's somebody more eminent than me in the room that should probably comment on it, and I apologise, Councillor McIntyre, maybe you should just comment further on that side. Apologies.
No apologies needed. No, I don't think it's I haven't read that article, so I can't comment on what was included in it, but I'm not entirely sure that sounds like it's a fair representation of what was discussed. I think Grant Thornton have been clear, much to the leader's commentary about being able to present or to have a non-disclaimed set of financial statements in the future years. They have to have a sound basis for opening balances, which they haven't got yet. They've done a huge amount of work to give them assurance on in-year transactions. I think there was a couple of questions made about cut-off testing and whether the invoices, there were about 4 invoices that were not explained adequately at the point that they were reporting on, ultimately massively immaterial to the materiality levels that they've set in their audit report. So I think it would be naive of anyone to think that a change of auditor would be able to come in and give us a clean bill of health for a number of years. But what they have done is talked about a huge amount of success and effort and improvement that the finance team for the council has put in and has cleared up a number of challenging topics that we've been looking at. So I actually took that report to be a really positive outcome, and I don't think anyone in the chamber would suggest that there isn't some more work to do, which has always been understood and known.
Thank you. If you want to come in, Councillor Cloak, you're very welcome.
Yeah, just very, very briefly, because I was quite disappointed by seeing that article in Surrey Live as well. And I think in the past, at this council, I think we've been rightly quite disappointed by some of the previous service we've had from previous auditors. And I wouldn't want anyone reading that article to think that Grant Thornton, as our current auditors, are not doing exactly what they said they would do when they were brought on board, frankly. As Councillor McIntyre said, it's a long process to build assurance over our opening balances. And I found Grant Thornton very good to deal with as chair of the Audit Standards and Risk Committee. Perhaps Surrey Live could have asked me for comment, but they instead just went straight to publish. So, that's up to them.
Thank you, Councillor Cope. The Chief Executive wants to come in.
Thank you, Leader. I don't normally speak in this meeting, but I think it's fair to lay praise on the officers within the finance team. I don't think that article expressed in any way, shape or form the level of effort and improvement that has gone into our financial affairs since my time as a Chief Executive. There has been a substantial improvement. The other point I'd note, which is really frustrating, is that article actually had us pinned as East Surrey in its first iteration, which gives you an indication of the type of journalism we're contending with, unfortunately. It would have been better if they'd perhaps listened to the whole meeting and therefore could have given a more representative outcome.
Thank you. Yes, I'd just like to add, because we started in a bad place. 4 years of no accounts, 4 years of no proper audits. We had an auditor that would sit over there and just dance around and actually not answer anything, but was happy for us to pay the bill. Grant Thornton is light and day. It's not to say I haven't had my own run-ins with them on a few things, but I think they're tough but fair. That's what we want, because we want to set a high bar and we want to get over a high bar. And I think as far as I understand, I'm not a finance person, as Councillor Mulvanganan keeps reminding me, but as far as I'm aware, we are getting to second order type impacts now. We have dealt with the big stuff. We're now dealing with the next level of stuff, and we'll keep moving on that journey and deal with the small stuff. So it's an incremental curve that we're on, and we will get there. I think when they came in originally, they said 4 years. we're only in year 2 now, Councillor Rowland, so I would ask you to be patient. In terms of the comment on the article, I think I could walk down Camberley High Street and give everybody £1 million and say spend it for the benefit of the community, and I would still get a negative article from that particular journalist. Please, Councillor Rowlands.
Yeah, just on the question they were making, is it valid that our books haven't been signed off since 2019? Is that still the issue?
Would you like to answer this, Mr Radford? I think the answer is yes, but I just want to check.
They've been disclaimed, which is different to not having them signed off. So they have been signed off, but they haven't had an unqualified opinion. So that's the distinction between the audit. So an unqualified opinion was where it's a clean audit. Qualified would be if they can't sign it off because there's material error, and disclaimer is where a lot of councils are in that position at the moment because of the whole delays in the audit processes. So they've signed them off as disclaimed accounts.
Good. Any more questions from members? No? Good. Okay, we'll move on then. Right, so I feel like it's changed my new glasses. I'm struggling it. Right, annual revenue budget and medium-term financial strategy. Councillor McIntyre.
Thank you, Leader. It's good to see that this has attracted a crowd today. Nice to see that finance is the leading article of. Maybe it's something else on the agenda, but anyway. Right, so budget setting for 26-27 has been quite challenging. Balancing the interests of our residents versus the longer-term sustainability, especially with the future authority around the corner. And it's a topic which I'm sure there'll be many different views on. We produced a balanced budget as required, and there is an MTFS for the following 3 years in order to be transparent with the future administration and authority that we will fall under. We've maintained the same principles of user pays for the discretionary services as we have in previous years, as far as is possible, and taken out quite a substantial amount of cost within the base budget with minimal impact on our resident services, again, insofar as is possible. The profile of spend and risk is similar to our prior years, with property driving a lot of our story. Fair funding review has been detrimental to us so far that we can tell to date, and the extended producer responsibility allowance will also have a future year's impact in a detrimental way. And the baked-in inflationary prices, which we have seen in prior years, are now crystallising the risks that we previously identified. Capital spend is based on the items that we must do, albeit that we do know it's unlikely that everything will be spent, and maybe then and we'll reflect on that. Within the papers, we talk about risks. There are upsides and downsides in there, but we believe it's a prudent budget that's been set, and it allows us to set up a transparent relationship with our new partners in the forthcoming authority. So I'm not going to go through all the numbers, but net cost of services are just under 19 million. The drawdown of reserves will be just over 2 million. Our council tax is proposed to increase by the maximum of 2.99%, and new capex is just over 8 million. I think the important thing, I just talked about reducing costs. We've removed over £5 million worth of expense from the base budget over the last few years, of 3 million of that in the transformation programme, which is obviously quite a considerable amount. Lots of this has been wiped out based on increased interest rates that we've seen, and there is limited costs that can further come out of the budget without having to make wholesale changes to the services. It would be difficult to do that as we go into a future authority when there needs to be a lot of work done on harmonising processes, services, etc. across the wider authority. Any questions?
Thank you, Councillor McIntyre. Maybe before I open it up for questions, if I could just take the opportunity to thank Vicky, Julie, the Deputy 151, Ryan, and all the unnamed members of the officer team that have worked on this, because it's a huge exercise, I know. but also noting the fact, as we touched on earlier, the publishing of the accounts on time and completing an audit diligently is just such a huge step forward. So thank you to everyone involved there. I mean, it just shows the continuous improvement journey that we're on. And yeah, we're looking forward to getting recognition for good practice in financial management. We're not quite there yet. We will be hopefully in due course, Councillor Cope, but we're not quite there yet. But we're well on that journey. So thank you to all involved, but also preparing the budget. Yeah. Councillor Wilson, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I echo that and the other comments that were made just immediately before. So I think this budget is a success because I think when we look at the predicted drawdown from reserves for the next year, it's 2.4 million, which from where we've started, from what we inherited, that is far lower than we would have expected, and that is a success. And it's because, as just been said, the successful transformation programme and strong budget management and robust monitoring and making the difficult decisions that had to be made to maintain control financially. And we've had, I mean, I'm on the Performance and Finance Committee and the Audit Standards and Risk Committee, and we get frequent, timely, accurate, formal financial reports now, which is not something that we had in the past. So, I mean, and as we've just heard, the audit progress towards a clean audit has been really significant, and that's what the auditors told us the other night as well. So we're making a lot of progress towards that, and the last clean audit was in 2018-19. So I think that's shown that Surrey Heath has the people and the leadership with the ability to take the situation that we had and come out now with stability, an element of stability in the finances to pass on to the successor authority. And you know, I'm really proud to be a member of this council that's managed to do that from what we started with. The question is about the cost of the council's property portfolio. So it's on page 32. 8.5 shows that the net operating income from the whole portfolio is about £6 million a year, forecast to be. And looking at the costs, it's also on the same page. If you look at the indirect costs of the property portfolio, so that's the interest on the loans plus the MRP. So the interest being paid is forecast to be about 6.1 million. And minimum revenue provision, which is another payment that the council has to make as a local authority to cover unfinanced costs, which this portfolio is another 2.9 million. So that's about 9 million. So the overall cost of the portfolio is about 3 million in the next financial year. And going right back to what I said at the start, the drawdown on reserves is forecast to be about 2.4 million. So if we didn't have this drag of the portfolio, property portfolio, the council would be in a slight budget surplus, which I think is an amazing achievement. And I want to add my congratulations to everyone who's been working on this throughout this last year and beyond. So I guess my question is, am I looking at that the right way? Would this council be in a slight budget surplus if we didn't have the drag of the portfolio? Thank you.
You just saved yourself at the end there. I was going to have to ask, what was your question? So, well done. Councillor McIntyre or Mrs Radford, who wants to say whether Councillor Wilson has dissected the books completely well enough?
The gold star. Thank you for the question. Largely, yes. The MRP and interest aren't necessarily wholly related to that, so there are definitely elements that wouldn't be attributed to that calculation specifically. I think we also have to remember, though, with the property portfolio that there are pros and cons. So there are some benefits and obviously some elements which that draw it down. So, you know, vacant units, having to refurbish units, the turnover, that's obviously all negatives. But then we also have rental income, which if we didn't have the buildings, wouldn't also hit our books. So you're right, as it stands, it would be about 3 million. And so therefore we would the net cost of services would not require the reserves.
Thank you. Just before I let the other two councillors in, can I just thank the P&F Chair, Councillor Garrett, and the P&F Committee, which Councillor Wilson has now mentioned, for their scrutiny of this. I'm not sure whether there were any specific points that were raised that led to adjustments in terms of the report that we saw. Is anybody able to advise on that?
Councillor Garrett's probably better placed than Mr Radford, but there were definitely some presentational elements, weren't there, that I think have been factored in.
Okay. Yeah, that was my impression, but I just wanted to check. So if I hand over to Councillor Garrett first, Councillor Cope, and he can maybe make any comment on that point, but also ask his question as well, that'd be great.
Thank you, I think. Yeah, so I've just approved the minutes, and I'm pretty sure everything that we discussed as a committee was put in those minutes, which then would have been fed back. I don't think there's anything majorly serious from what I can remember. So yeah, I'm happy that's the case. I've just got one. I actually, two things. One is I really need to learn. I make notes when I read them for the P&F, and then the page numbers change. So I need to go back through and readdress that. But there was one question I asked on the night, and I will ask again because I can't actually remember the answer. This term fair funding, which in my opinion is not, I would like to get an understanding. So the government has effectively reduced the amount we get, which already wasn't much. What do we, I can't remember if Mr Radford actually told me, what do we actually get? And I know it's reduced by about 28%, I think, if memory serves me. What do we actually see as a monetary value? And I know it's for 3 years, if memory serves as well.
Yeah, Mrs Radford and I were in a thrilling session with the Minister today, I think. So perhaps you'd like to comment on what she gleaned from that and the data behind it.
Yeah, as in Appendix 1 to the main report, district councils have lost quite a lot as a whole. So yeah, you're right, percentage-wise. In terms of the number that we actually get, how that translates into our budget compared to what we were budgeting for in our MTFS is different. So the numbers would have changed just because of maybe some of the assumptions we made are different. So we're actually better off in 26-27 because we were a lot more prudent in what we thought we may get from the fair funding. So we were over pessimistic in that. So when you compare the years, it doesn't quite correlate to the reduction that has happened from the government. So it's a little bit confusing in that sense. They've shifted around a lot of the grants. They've rolled in a lot of grants, and it is very, very complicated how they've done it. So you can't, if you look at the funding settlement for this time last year compared to now, it looks completely different. It's not easily comparable. So they've moved some money around from business rates into different funding streams and the core spending power. So the core spending power as a whole isn't hugely different, but percentage-wise for us, obviously monetary, it's not as big as, say, a county council. And I know I've skirted around the issue a little bit on the figures there, but...
Add to...
Yes, please, then. If you want to add to this point, that's fine.
Sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, my reading of it, but under the fair funding review, our core spending power goes up 0.9% after council tax increase, which is going up at 2.99%. So am I right in assuming, therefore, that 2.1% of our council tax is funding the loss of funding we are getting from central government, which on the back of my fag packet is just over £200,000. Is that a fair assumption on what it means for us this year?
Yeah, that's quite a good summary, yeah. Essentially,
okay.
Yes. Well
done. Thank you.
And just while we're on the same point, thanks for your patience, Councillor Cope. broadly speaking, what do we think it means in future years for us, this change, Mrs. Radford?
In future years, our funding will come down. So the money, also complicating what is in this current, for 26-27, is they've put some funding floor protection amounts in. So, and that reduces over the 3 years. So by the end of the 28-29, that will have dropped off. So incrementally, the funding is going to reduce each year. So there isn't as much of an impact in 26-27. So broadly, it's around a third reduction each year.
Thank you. Councillor Cope.
Thank you. My question may be connected. So when I look at the budget summary in the appendix, 26-27, which I understand there's been some positive comments about, it's slightly an outlier in the years. If you look at the budget gap in particular, you have a budget gap of 2.2 million compared to 6.6 in the previous year, but 7.6 the following year and 9.3 the year after that. So I'm just wondering why the discrepancy. Why is 26-27 looking so much better than the other years? Is it because we are putting everything in, all of our financial measures in now because of the transition to unitary? So my first question is what's going on there? And connected to it, on my favourite subject of MRP, again, the MRP looks fairly steady year on year up to 26-27, and then there's quite a big jump at 27-28 and another jump at 28-29. Now, I know that our external auditors continually comment that our MIP provision may be lower than it should be. Is that jump as a result of this approach?
As typical, I'll start with the last question first. The reason for the jump in 27-28 is because the timing of what we're assuming that we're going to spend in the capital programme mainly related to new vehicles on the waste fleet. So in 27-28, we've got a double year because we're assuming 8 years, and then the existing fleet, that's the last year we'll be charging MRP on. So that is as a result of spending the capital programme, and when some of the schemes that we're assuming that we maybe are spending now or will spend in the future, that's when they'll become operational and they'll start. So that's why the MRP is increasing. It's nothing to do with us changing our approach. In terms of the funding, when we made assumptions in the budget, and we were pessimistic on our business rates assumptions, what was rolled into the fair funding figures was sort of a previous deficit that we'd had on our government returns. So that's worked in our favour. So that shows us getting a bit more. So that equates to about 1.5 million. We've got some additional homelessness grant that they've announced as part of the final settlement. And it's the rolling up of the funding protection as well. So that kind of drops off as we go through. So the money we get from the government in 26-27 for revenue support grant is about 2.5 million. It goes down to 1.5 at the end of the 3-year period. So that's dropping off. And the business rates is say 1.2 million, and that drops off to about 1.5. So the funding is reducing, and that is why the budget gap gets higher. The other thing that we've got included in 26-27 is our extended producer responsibility grant, and we're assuming that will fall out in 27-28, and that's another 1.5 million. So unfortunately, quite a lot of stuff we're assuming is going to fall out is quite big sums of money. The other thing that we've also got included in the expenditure side is an assumption of increased costs for our waste contract, which starts in 27 as well. So all big numbers of those, unfortunately.
So I think it's fair to say the general theme of being prudent has continued through the forecast into the future, and anything that hasn't come to this chamber yet for a decision is not in the budget. So there could be some things that may still flow through in a positive way, but I think it's some of these macro things like the fair funding review that is hurting us, Councillor Cope, which is why you're seeing that quite shift into the future. But as Councillor Wilson commented, the underlying issue is the lag from the property portfolio. Councillor Rowlands.
Can I go back to page 7, 6.3, and the use of reserves. Now, it appears that we're able to get through to the period of our demise, but after that, the figures seem to indicate that our inheritors are going to have a pretty thin porridge of it. Is that a reasonable explanation of it? Is that fair to whoever takes over? Shall I go through one or two other points or leave it at
Just stop on that one. I think that's pretty much spot on, but that's also consistent with what we said from the beginning of this administration, that we needed to get a grip of the finances, we needed to understand the finances, we needed to work through the issues that arose with the finances. So what we are seeing manifest now is nothing that wasn't forecast previously, Councillor Rowlands. The fantastic work that's been done for the team, and I do want to shout out for Mrs. McCubbin here, around the work that's been done in reducing the discretionary spend, in particular in certain areas, and efficiencies that have been found, has managed to allow us to get to a situation where we have stability going into local government reorganisation. It does mean the shadow authority is inheriting quite a challenging, as you call it, thin gruel to deal with, as well as some people will be aware today from various publications by the Minister around Spelthorne, what looks like an extremely challenging situation unfolding in Spelthorne, very similar to Woking. And I think it's also worth commenting on that we are very grateful and very respectful of the fact that we have a very strong officer team, and indeed an engaging councillor team as well, that's made sure that we have, in the vast majority, pulled together to address these issues rather than imploding on itself, which I think is roughly my reading of the report from Spelthorne. But those are my words, not the Commissioner's. What's your second point?
Can I ask another question? Go on. Going on to 6.6 and the paragraph dealing with the decline in our retail income. I just wondered, we seem to have produced another pocket of income that came forward, but it seemed to disguise the fact that this decline is quite serious and is a crucial handicap that the council faces.
Fully agree. The retail, the investment in the retail property was a catastrophic failure that has impacted this council and will continue to impact this council for the long term. No doubt we'll come back to that in other debates, Councillor Rowlands, I'm sure. Councillor Wilson, I do think we need to start trying to move this forward, conscious of the fact we get a second bite of this apple at another place, well, same place, different time.
Thank you, Leader. It's going back to the point of what this council will be passing on to West Surrey Council, and I just want to read a couple of lines. It's page 37, paragraph 13.5. If the budget is approved, then the longer-term outlook has a clear direction of travel, which will allow the new West Surrey Council to make decisions to create a more sustainable financial position while continuing to deliver key services to residents and businesses. And this is the key point. It's been pointed out by officers at other meetings as well, that we have to leave an inheritance to the successor authority, because the public that we serve now will be served by the successor authority. And the only way to serve our public properly is to make sure we hand on a sustainable and a stable set of finances and a full set of accounts. My question is, it's about the Prudential Code. So, yeah, it was mentioned earlier that we've produced an MTFS, so forecast for future years, because we need to pass on, this to the next authority to help them. So I was just wondering if the Prudential Code means that producing this medium-term forecast is actually mandatory, or are we doing it because it's clearly the right thing to do? because I know that Surrey County Council last week were not going to produce any kind of forecast for future years. They were just going to cut off, and the Lib Dem group forced them to produce very rapidly a few more extra years, but it was a bit of a botched job. So is it mandatory to do it, or is it something that is optional that we're doing because it's the right thing to do? Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess if I could try and paraphrase what I think was the question there, which is setting the budget, is that something we have to do, and setting a further medium-term financial forecast in the future years, is that something legally we have to do? Okay, it's out with my remit to comment on that.
So there's kind of two answers here, really. So it is a legal requirement to set a balanced budget annually, and that's under the Local Government Finance Act 1992. And it is implied under various SIP codes, other legal frameworks, and it's good practice to look further ahead. The Local Government Finance Act 2003 requires a Section 151 officer to report on the robustness of estimates and adequacy of reserves, which obviously is a longer term perspective. Now, what I understand, Surrey, we've had a number of discussions around an MTFS, and 1 year there was another Surrey Council that only reported on 1 year. The discussion is around future decisions will be for the new authority. So, you know, we've put in assumptions into the budget partly because I felt that our financial position, we had to be really, really clear what we were going, you know, the new authority was taking on. I know most of the other councils did do the full 3 years and present it in that way, but I do know that the other two councils kind of had a more assumption-based approach as opposed to presenting the figures how we've approached them. So the format isn't prescribed. It's down to the Section 151 officer to enable they've got the right information to deliver their statutory responsibilities.
Thank you. Councillor McIntyre.
So I just wanted to also say that I think as portfolio holder, I would have really struggled had we not produced a longer term outlook, which, so I was in complete agreement with Mr Radford's intention to do that, but for a couple of reasons. Firstly, why do you just stop doing something if you don't have to? I think that's just negligent to some extent. And secondly, we want to be transparent, and we know that the future doesn't look rosy for us, and I think it would be difficult for us as an administration to pass on a budget that's based on 1 year, not the forward-looking for the future 3 years. I think what we do need to be cognizant of, or the future authority needs to be aware of, is the makeup of those MTFSs, and annual budget, in fact, will be done differently for different councils, and so it'll be hard to read across each one with complete confidence, but the sooner that work is done and there's an understanding of the financial situation across all boroughs, then the better place we'll all be in, and the robustness of the future authority.
Thank you. Yes, we're all in this boat together going forward, so it's good if we understand what some of the challenges are. And in fact, I think it's an action for the officers to come back to the March joint committee with the first cut of the consolidation of the approved budgets at that point, including their best guess of the carve-up of Surrey's budget, so that we can see what that looks like. Okay, I think we need to just move to tick on a little bit. I've got one question myself. I don't know if anybody else has got anything, and I think we do want to talk about CapEx for a moment or two. Just because I didn't see it in the report, Mrs Radford, do we know how much 1% of council tax makes a difference in terms of our budget position, please?
It's around 105,000.
105,000? Golly, that's half of what I thought it was. Right, okay, thank you. Yeah, good, okay. We've talked about that one. Yeah, maybe we jump to the CapEx question. So that's in this report, isn't it, somewhere? It's buried in one of the appendices, I think, isn't it? Is that right? Sorry, I'm struggling to find it here. 1 second. Yeah, I think I've got it now. Thank you. I think it's the incredibly difficult spreadsheet to read. Yeah, hence the glasses on the nose. Further to subsequent conversations, it would be my recommendation to the executive that we amend the resolution with the recommendation to council to do a couple of things. One is to move the vehicle expenditure for JWS into 27, 28. Please keep correcting me here if I get any of this wrong, please, Mr. Everett. The second one is noting the fact that we do not at the moment have any sight on the horizon for Gypsy and Traveller, that we also do the same there. Although if any site does come forward, we always have the ability to come back to council and amend the capital budget. So that's just a timing issue, but I think it more appropriately deals with the reality of what we are facing in terms of the journey ahead. I think a number of members, including my learned colleague, would like us to just put to move the expenditure on the theatre to the contingency that can be released as a function of the portfolio holder for finance and the head of finance's discretion, subject to the I guess business plan review that's ongoing at the moment, so that we just recognise the fact that expenditure is contingent on achieving that hurdle. And I don't know whether Councillor Feenan-Cook, you'd be happy with us maybe putting a little bit of a threshold in on any unit refurbishment as well. Conscious of the fact there's some big numbers in there, or would you like to leave the officers with maximum flexibility? So if we said maybe that they can proceed with anything up to say 50,000, but the rest of the money is contingent on coming back here, is that okay? Subject to the officers finding a way to put that into words. Are the officers okay that is manageable, what we've just come up with? Yeah? Yes. Please, Councillor McIntyre.
So I'm in agreement with all that. I don't have a challenge. My only question is, have we, or could we just double check that there will be no timing issues with things having to come back through a governance process for each of those topics? So what I wouldn't want is for something to have some momentum behind it in order to be spent, but it doesn't have the approval.
So we think we'll be able to work around it, but also make sure we get the focus on those areas. Councillor Rice, please.
Thank you. It's just a request within the wording that the appropriate level of flexibility is added in for the potential procurement of waste vehicles, because it's just with the expected kind of onboarding period of the new contract that will be decided later this year. It's just, I just want to make sure that we don't tie our hands behind our back.
No, and so my recommendation reflected the latest information that the view is that this won't happen until 27, 28, but maybe the Chief Executive or one of the other officers want to just comment.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yes, thanks, Councillor Rice. So speaking to Joint Waste Solutions, you'll be aware that we're going through bidder dialogue sessions at the moment. The conversation with the bidders collectively in relation to those vehicles was that they would expect payment on receipt, so that would take us into the subsequent financial year. So it's right to move that capital expenditure back.
So broadly speaking, we're okay with the numbers as they stand. A little bit on the phasing, a little bit on the on how it comes forward. This is the essence of what I've said, yeah, and recommended to the executive to consider recommending to full council, because that's what we're doing today. So are we okay with the recommendation with the tweaks on the capital side? Agreed. Thank you. Okay. Annual plan. That's with me. I see Ms. Bainbridge is in and available to get me out of trouble, which is great. And Ms. Kipping as well. Just to again thank everybody involved in pulling this together, which, as we know, can be a bit of a monstrous exercise. So thank you to Ms. Bainbridge for coordinating that. Were there any? I'm not going to go into a big song and dance show about it. You've had the joy of reading all whatever it is 36 pages of it as normal. So is there any questions or issues arising? Please, Councillor Garrett was up first, then Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, and I want to echo what I said in the chamber when it came to P&F, because I know I'm conscious they have to, because they're bringing it to me before they come to executive, they probably have to move their timetables around, so I thank them for that. It was a comment I made in the chamber for P&F, and I just want to reiterate it now. One of my concerns is I know Ms Bainbridge will have this fully under control because it's coming back to it will come back to P&F in various guises. A lot of the dates for this are ending in March 27, and we are obviously pretty close to not big. We are aware of it when it comes for 6-month update. We probably have to give that more scrutiny than normal because I don't want stuff to be slipping, and I know that won't be the case. But I just wanted to bring that at this juncture.
Thank you. I think that's a fair comment. I don't know, Ms Bainbridge, do you want to comment anything back on that from what Councillor Garrett said?
Only just to say, absolutely, when we bring the mid-year later this year, we'll highlight anything that we feel is at risk at that point.
Thank you. And members will note that we put some things in to reflect what we wanted to see the new authority take on board, and actually particularly in the finance area, to ensure, and what's the phrase you used, that we end well, or well ending or something? End well, that we end well. I think it goes back to what Councillor Wilson said, that we want to do things in a professional and measured way, as we have done by doing a medium-term financial strategy in a prudent nature, which not everybody has done. We want to make sure that we close out properly as well, and hopefully, going back to Councillor Rowland's point, get properly signed off accounts as well at the end of that process. Oh yes, sorry, I apologise, I lost the order there. Councillor Wilson, please.
Yeah, thank you. I've definitely got a question on this, but I just remembered something that might help about the lack of a clean audit. There was a webinar today from Grant Thornton, and they said that 45% of councils have received a disclaimed audit. So we're in that 45%. It's not unusual. Apologies. My question is page 194. I don't want to read it out, so if read out the whole section, so it would be helpful if you could have a look at page 194. And it's reference 6.04. It's to do with the council's approach to charity governance. And as we know, the council appoints quite a few trustees to charities around the borough. So, Charity Commission on discouraging or perhaps even preventing councils from appointing trustees from among their members to charities. Has there been a recent change? This is probably a question for the officers. Has there been a recent change from the Charity Commission that would inhibit the appointment of charity trustees by councils in any way? Thank you.
Good, thank you for directing that away from us. We're much appreciative. Does anybody know the answer to that? Thank you.
I'm afraid I don't, but I can undertake to look that up and respond in writing to you, if that's okay.
Great, thank you. Councillor, hang on, sorry, Councillor Tedder, it's not yourself, it was Councillor Ashbury. Because he muttered into my ear saying he wanted to be on the list, so he's on the list, you'll be after him, please.
Right. It's on section 4.03 on page 184, champion local community causes. It says in the statement, progress any outcomes of the community governance review. For me, just looking at the high-level numbers that you read through earlier, it is likely, and in the paper coming next week, that parts of the borough will remain without a parish council. And some parts of the borough that do have a parish council are not in control of all the assets that they potentially could be in that area. I wonder if that statement is broad enough to cover the need that I think we will have going through the next 12 months at looking at how we safeguard community assets and keep the governance of them local, either through a parish council or through another body, as to how we do that, rather than have every single scrap of playing field, etc., being looked at by the new authority. So I think there's a piece of work that needs doing that isn't referenced in there. I just feel that that's a bit too broad, that statement.
What page was that on?
Page 184, number 4.03. It's the only mention I can find of community governance review, and there's no mention of asset transfer or safeguarding of assets during the process. Have I made myself clear? You understand the question?
So obviously those papers have now gone live and are in the public domain. I think members will be aware that as a function of the work of what we do as councillors, some of us get exposure to papers earlier through the process, including through the CGR working group, whenever that was it the week ago or something? I think a number of members here. So we have an inkling as to where that was heading, and they've now been published and it's all visible to everybody, which is great. And we'll debate that in a week's time. So let's not prejudge it. However, we have had previous conversations, I think, at this place, whether it's in this meeting or in other meetings, about two things. One is the potential transfer of assets to the parishes, which I think we would want to consider re-looking at post-May, because I think, let's be honest, we've all got quite a lot of stuff to get through up to that point in time. That's one element, and I think the second element is to look at the unparished areas and see what assets we have that are potentially more at risk than others to the unitary vultures, I'm going to paraphrase them as. So, because they are potentially at risk of various things without the same attention that this body gives them. So, I'd like to propose an amendment that maybe reflects that, which says that we would, so it's a single liner, potentially Miss Bainbridge, just to say that we will re-look at the cascading of assets to parishes, which Ms McCubbin's been kind enough to lead on valiantly, to re-look at that, for argument's sake, in Q2. That must be about the right time frame, and to see what makes sense then. Which still has sufficient time, depending on the scale of our ambition there, and what makes sense, because it's a two-way street. We might want to offer the assets; they don't necessarily have to accept them. And then the second thing is maybe to perform some kind of risk-based approach in terms of the assets, the key assets within the unparished areas, to see what kind of barriers to change we can put in place to protect them for our community, which we're serving today. It's not likely to be a huge exercise, it's not likely to be a huge number of assets, but there might be things that are still within our remit that we can do, and we could consider doing, whether it be on delegated authority or whether it has to come back to this place for approval. It's things like the leases and various other things that might give some protection for a longer period of time. So those are things that I would like to suggest as an amendment there. The second element related to the unparished areas, potentially could we look at some kind of feedback about what the options are at an earlier juncture than Q2, and then agree what the approach is going forward. The execution might then follow, if that's okay with the executive. Just before I come to you, anybody violently disagree with that as a proposal from the executive side? Please, Councillor Garrett. Yeah.
So reference that point, as you're saying it, I'm thinking, if you're looking at a Q2 and whatever, would that be potentially affected by anything that may come down and says after this date we can't do anything?
I don't believe so because the asset value is not large enough. And if I remember correctly, community assets tend to be valued quite low, as you may know from some of our activities where we try to push assets already into the community. So they're not necessarily at true market rates, as if they could do anything with the asset anyway. So I think we'll be below the thresholds, but it's a fair point, but I think we'll be below. If we have to, we will. Clearly, Councillor Rice's not your personal contract, but the waste contract will need to go through that process because it's a monster. But we should be trying to avoid that as much as possible because, it's an effort on all parts to go through that exercise. But thank you for raising. Councillor Teddy, you've been extremely patient with us. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to correct the statement made by Councillor Wilson, what was actually said was some years ago, the Charity Commission wrote to the charities that had and parish councils to say it would be useful to split. It must have been some 10, 15 years ago, which was why Chobham Parish Council had to get new bank accounts and split its recreation ground from the parish council. It's not very, he didn't do it very successfully. So the point being was that if there's so much conflict of interest, if you are a councillor and you are sitting on a charity, it's a very, very difficult road to follow. And that the Charity Commission, I think, felt at the time it was better if the independent people rather than parish councils. And that is where it came from. It was 10, 15 years ago. So please don't look for an up-to-date from the Charity Commission because it's not there. It's about, as I say, I can actually get you the paragraph if you'd like it because we were discussing it today and I've forgotten what the number is.
Thank you, Councillor Tedder. I'm sure that the monitoring officer that said that she would follow up on that will be interested to see the detail and then she'll feed back whatever the outcome of all of that is to the rest of us for our education. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
I would appreciate clarification on the actual position on that. My question is, and I'm a little bit unfair, so I should apologise because I was on PNF when we made recommendations, and thank you to the officers for taking them all into account. But it was just reading the earlier report on the budget, it quite often mentioned the actual name of the Council's 5-year strategy. It's called Delivering for You and a Fairer Society. And I was just wondering if that name should or could be used at some point in the annual plan, because it does mention the 5 priorities very clearly. And it mentions that they are the 5 priorities of the 5-year plan, but it just doesn't mention the name of the Council's strategy. Would it be a good idea to mention that? I'll just put it out there as a suggestion. Thank you.
I'm sure Ms Bainbridge would be happy to incorporate that. It's a good catch. Thank you. Any others? I think I've got one other, which relates to, the Minister is writing letters willy-nilly at the moment. And they wrote one to us yesterday, myself and Mr Stevens, concerning local outcomes framework, is it? Yeah. Which was something I hadn't known about and was thrilled to learn about. But basically, it's a whole set of KPIs about how they will judge best value, I think, for councils going forward. Please correct me, officers, if I've done it a disservice there. I think there is an opportunity for us to reflect on whether any of those KPI. Well, first of all, have we got the ones that are relevant for us already in our annual plan? If there are ones that we haven't got that are relevant to us, can we incorporate them easily? So that we are, broadly speaking, going in the same direction as where the government will measure and manage us going forward. So if it's okay with the executive, I'd like to suggest both on my first recommendation, which is the line, and that second one, that you delegate back to myself and Mr Stevens, working with Ms Bainbridge, the exact wording of those changes, and we incorporate that into the final plan. So you're okay with that gap analysis versus this new framework? I think Ms Bainbridge is already off and running with it, and we'll finalise that over the days ahead. Okay, if there's nothing else on the annual plan, and I haven't forgotten anything to do with the annual plan that I've already tipped people off about, then I suggest that we, do we agree with the recommendation with the amendment, 2 amendments that stand? Thank you, everybody. Okay, I get a rest now, goody goody. Revenue grants, Councillor Feenan-Cook.
Thank you, Leader. This report presents recommendations for the allocation of revenue grants for 26-27, reflecting the Council's commitment to supporting vulnerable residents. The Executive is asked to maintain core funding for Citizens Advice Surrey Heath for the remainder of its ring-fenced period. The Executive is also asked to defer a decision regarding the Hope Hub pending resolution of service level agreement matters, with delegated authority to the Head of Housing, Community and Recreation Services and me as the portfolio holder. The Executive is further asked to resolve that the organisations be advised that future funding is conditional on the Council's financial stability. Assessments indicate that both the Hope Hub and CASH provide essential non-duplicated services, and reductions in funding would create significant adverse impacts for vulnerable residents. For the Hope Hub, this includes increased homelessness risk and pressure on the Council's housing support services, with 196 individuals already supported in 6 months and growing complexity of need. For CASH, withdrawal of support could lead to increased evictions, homelessness, benefit loss and reduced resident resilience, as the service supported 5,617 residents in 24-25, including a high proportion with disabilities or long-term conditions. Grant funding remains a discretionary function, but support services accessed by residents with protected characteristics and those experiencing deprivation with potential equalities impacts if reduced. The Council's financial pressures mean the funding cannot be guaranteed beyond 26-27, despite being budgeted for next year. These grants are fundamental to the voluntary sector, with no alternative providers for the services these charities deliver in Surrey Heath. Local government reorganisation may affect future arrangements, as organisations will fall under West Surrey model, post-vesting, potentially altering ring-fenced agreements from 27-28 onwards. So the paper is with you, and I hope that you will approve it.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Garrett.
Firstly, I stupidly forgot to declare an interest, having done their quiz for the last 3 years. So I have obviously an interest from that respect, non-pecuniary, obviously. Picking up on probably the last paragraph you said there, and I think I mentioned it at a group leaders meeting. Obviously, both these two are non-statutory services, and I suppose the concern is whatever our financial position is at the end of Surrey Heath, I don't know what we can do to put something in place to make sure the new unitary, whatever that looks like, is able to carry on supporting these two well-used, well-needed charities. Is there? I know there's no guarantees, but is there something we can suggest to put in place? Because I'm sure there will be other districts and boroughs that are in the same position where they have charities they also support.
Yeah, so I can't remember what meeting it was that I commented on this before, but so I had raised this proactively with Surrey leaders. We did have a presentation and feedback from the officers around what was going on across the different districts and boroughs, both in terms of financial support but non-financial support as well, which we do extensively here. It's fair to say that we don't yet have a definitive way forward, but I think we all recognise that whether it be discretionary or statutory services, and sometimes it's a blend of the two with particular organisations, there is something here that we need to manage to make sure that we don't have a cliff edge. And I know the officers are committed to working on that and bringing us something back. It just hasn't happened yet. So I think all the leaders are on the same page. Please correct me if you felt differently. No. And I think, to be fair, the chief executives as well, they spend a lot of time working really hard with these organisations to knit things together within the local community. So you have my commitment to keep championing that, and I'm sure Mr. Stevens as well. Equally, I am also aware of what's happened in Woking, that some of these organisations have had to find new funding streams and have had to find ways to work without the same level of council support. And I do have a feeling that may be the pathway a number of them will have to go on. But the question is, how do we manage that transition? I don't think it can all happen on the 1st of April 2027. Thank you, Councillor Garrett. Please.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you for your answers to that question. I just wanted to add to it that Citizens Advice are working county-wide, so they are looking to align prior to LGR. So hopefully for them it will be a smooth transition.
Okay, I've just got a quick one. So first of all, I think I've commented before that as a family we contribute to Hope Hub, so just for transparency it's there, it's not technically required. I have actually been reached out to today by, not in connection with this matter, by the chair of Citizens Advice in Surrey Heath, and noting the fact that what you said, that they're starting to work and coordinating and thinking about how they can how they can work with the new West Surrey going forward. So we very much support that, and thank you to Greg Scott and the team for what they do. But also I'd like to just comment that they have recently appointed a new CEO, Kirsten Williams, and I think we will wish her the very best of luck in the new role and look forward to working with her and the team going forward through this challenging time, should we say, for not just for change, but also for our residents who are still feeling the hangovers from COVID, from the economic crisis, and from the disparities in our society today. Thank you. If there's no more, are we happy to go with the resolution as it stands? Agreed. Is that the first one we haven't amended? Well done us. Right. Okay. Chobham Neighbourhood Plan. It's you, Mr. Ashby. Councillor Ashby.
Thank you. Neighbourhood plans are a way in which local communities can influence the scale and type of development in their area. Once made, they form part of the development plan and are used to determine planning applications in the neighbourhood area in a similar way as local plans. There is currently one made neighbourhood plan in the borough covering Windlesham. The Chobham Neighbourhood Plan has been prepared by the Parish Council with support from the Neighbourhood Plan Steering Group, and it covers the period up to 2038. Local communities who prepare neighbourhood plans are to be commended, as they take significant volunteer commitment over an extended period of time. The neighbourhood plan doesn't include any housing site allocations, but includes policies on matters such as location, housing mix, design, local parking, flooding, important views, and allocation of local green spaces and heritage. The plan was submitted to Surrey Heath Borough Council in June 2025, and as required by regulations, a statutory consultation on the submitted plan was then held. Although Surrey Heath Borough Council ran that consultation, it was also a consultee. The representations were then sent along with the plan and submitted evidence to an appointed examiner for independent examination. And neighbourhood plans are assessed against what are known as basic conditions. The examiner concluded that, subject to a number of modifications, the neighbourhood plan submitted met the basic conditions and should proceed to local referendum. The modifications largely related to minor redrafting of policy wording, but also sought the deletion of a policy relating to employment sites and deletion of 2 proposed local green spaces. It is recommended that the examiner's modifications and reasons for them are accepted, and that the neighbourhood plan, as modified, proceeds to local referendum. Subject to approval of this report, we are able to apply for a grant to cover the examination costs incurred to date and the costs of running the referendum. It is planned that the referendum will be held on the 7th of May alongside the shadow West Surrey Unitary Authority elections. If more than 50% of those who vote in favour of the neighbourhood plan being part of the Surrey Heath Development Plan, it will automatically, immediately become part of the development plan and be used in determining planning applications in Chobham Parish. This will then need to be ratified by full council.
Any questions? Councillor Rise, you were out first.
A couple. Just following on from that final point where Councillor Ashby said that if it receives over 50%, it will be immediately applied. If it doesn't receive over 50% of those who voted, and I'm assuming this is a binary question, could it still then be passed by the council to then be implemented? So the question is, you said if it gets a yes, it becomes implemented and then gets ratified. If the answer to the referendum is no, what happens then?
I will ask Ms Reeves to answer that question as the technically competent person.
Thank you, Councillor Ashby. My understanding is that the requirement is to get over that 50% threshold, and if it's below it, then the plan isn't made. But I will check up on the regulations regarding that, because it's not a situation we've come across previously where less than 50% has been achieved.
Thank you, and I've got a second question. So just under resource, so on page 220, under section 5, which is resource implications, and it says that there's a government grant of 20,000 towards the cost. Is that expected to cover all costs? So the 20,000 is how much we will spend on the referendum and all associated costs, or is it expected there may be extra costs which will have to be funded outside of that grant?
Again, I am not an expert on conducting consultations or on running referenda. I don't know how much has been spent thus far. I don't know if you have that information, Ms Reeves.
I do, Councillor Ashby. So the referendum is expected to cost about approximately £6,000. And the grant that we can apply for will cover all of the costs of the referendum, cover the costs of appointing the examiner, and cover officer time in supporting Chobham in progressing their neighbourhood plan.
And it's maybe worth commenting with thanks for Ms Reeves and the other officers' work supporting this whole process. And also noting, seeing as you're in the chamber, Ms Reeves, the big milestone that we've seen over the last few weeks with respect to the local plan, which is a massive one for us. We're not there yet, but we might be able to see the end in sight. So thank you again for that. And obviously, Mr Bartlett as well. Councillor Wilson, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Parish Councillor Emma Kennedy was the chair of the Chobham Neighbourhood Development Plan Steering Group, and you mentioned earlier about the huge amount of work that volunteers have put in. I just want to pay tribute to her and to the Vice Chair, Councillor Amy Mockbell as well. I know that Councillor Kennedy had made arrangements to speak at this point in the meeting. Unfortunately, she really wanted to be here, but unfortunately she's unavoidably unable to attend. So she's given me a brief statement to read on her behalf. And if it's all right, I'll combine that with what I was going to be saying anyway.
That's fine, thank you.
Yeah, so neighbourhood plans are an important way for individual communities to describe and protect their unique characteristics and spirit. They give local residents a genuine say in the future development and enhancement of their community, and they provide valuable guidance for potential applicants for planning permission and the local planning authority. So these are the words of Parish Councillor Emma Kennedy. So, quote, 14 years ago, a group of parish councillors and members...
hang on, Councillor Wilson, just hang on a second. Councillor Tedder. Yep. Yeah, you're not on the microphones at the moment, Councillor. Councillor, you're not on the microphones at the moment, and technically you haven't got speaking rights either at the moment, so just
it's
make it very brief,
a point
please,
of order, Mr Chairman, that I think, I'm not sure that I have to declare an interest because I am named as a member of the Chobham Neighbourhood Plan Committee. And as far as I'm aware, I was never asked to a meeting. I don't believe there's any minutes of that meeting, but I just want to declare that I am supposed to have been a member. I don't know whether
so
I have to or not.
We're not going to have issues around Chobham Parish Council.
Yep, I just want to make sure I haven't done anything wrong.
You've registered your interest in it, that's fine. I think it's noted in your register as well, you're a parish councillor as well for Chobham. That's fine. It's conducive with making ourselves accessible to the public, that we let people. I had already previously said that I would welcome a statement from the people that are involved in this exercise coming forward. I am aware of Councillor Kennedy's challenges in making it here today, so I do think it's still appropriate that Councillor Wilson just feeds back the work that has been done by the team to bring this forward, because it's a very positive thing for the Chobham area, which I think you know and love well. So please, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Leader. So these are the words of Parish Councillor Emma Kennedy. Quote, 14 years ago, a group of parish councillors and members of the community began the process of putting together a neighbourhood plan for Chobham. 3 years ago, I was tasked with getting the project over the line with the help of councillors Amy Muckbell and Sean Moyna. Together with other members of the parish council and the wider community, I am proud to be able to say we've finally done it. Our neighbourhood plan was approved by the inspector last November, but since then, allegations have come to light which you need to be aware of. 2 parcels of land, the Broom Lane allotments and the Red Lion Road allotments, were removed from our local green spaces list following representations made by solicitors acting on behalf of the trustees of the charity Chobham Poor Allotments. They argued that the land was no longer used as allotment space and there was no desire or requirements for allotments in Chobham. Serious and credible allegations have since been made by Chobham Action Group, a group of over 60 local residents, that those representations are false. Chobham Poor Allotments are currently the only providers of allotment space within Chobham. The Parish Council is unable to provide allotments as we own no land to do so, and neither do we have the funds to buy land that might be suitable. A few years ago, Chobham Poor Allotments began serving notices to quit on allotment holders, giving no reasons as to why. Since then, they have begun selling off land that was permanently endowed for the benefit of the people of the ancient parish of Chobham. It is also alleged that given the land was permanently endowed, they had no right to sell off this land. A long complaint about Chobham Poor Allotments and their recent activities has been made to the Charity Commission by Chobham Action Group, supported by our MP, and we await their findings. To be clear, there is a need for allotment space in Chobham. Unfortunately, it's too late for the neighbourhood plan to be able to ask the inspector to revisit this, but it isn't too late for the local plan. I would ask then, when the time comes, the representations are made to have both the Broom Lane allotments and the Red Lion allotments reinstated on the local green space list. End quote. So Councillor Kennedy makes serious points about the lack of accountability for Chobham Poor Allotments Charity, an organisation charged with the stewardship of community assets. I found out today that at least 2 of the trustees were first appointed over 21 years.
Councillor, can we try and focus it, please, on the matter in hand, which is the Chobham neighbourhood plan? I think your points were valid up to this point. Can we just keep it focused on that, please? Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a fair point that decisions are being made in secret, and that can't be acceptable. So allotments which are greatly valued by their holders and in high demand in Chobham are being repossessed by the Chobham Poor Allotments Charity. I commend the Chobham Neighbourhood Plan to the Executive. I hope that you will agree to approve it today. But I recommend also that officers are asked to look at reviewing and amending it post-adoption to redesignate the allotment sites as local green space and recreation areas. And before I finish, I would like to read a statement from an allotment user. Ari,
just on a point of order, please.
3.5.
Yep.
Leader.
Yep.
I'm nearly finished.
No, 1 second, Councillor. Let's take this one first.
I sympathise with Councillor Wilson's points that he's making. However, this paper is about authorising the running of a referendum on the Chobham neighbourhood plan. And I just would like guidance on how closely do we need to stick to that point, because I feel that Councillor Wilson is veering away from that purpose of this paper.
So I agree with Councillor Rise. So I think we will guillotine you there, Councillor Wilson. Thank you, Councillor Rise.
I'm sorry, I'm nearly finished. I've got about 4 or 5 lines left to read.
Councillor Wilson, enough. I think there was a question there that related to this paper somewhere, and Councillor Ashbury will try and answer it. Thank you, Councillor Rise again.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Wilson. I'm going to paraphrase what I think the question was back to you, and then I'll answer it. I think the question was, can we adopt the neighbourhood plan and proceed, send it forward to referendum? Could we then modify it afterwards? I think was the question. And the answer to that is no. The period for consultation on the neighbourhood plan has run its course. It has, representations were made to the examiner and the examiner has examined it at that. So the plan with the modifications that have been recommended by the team are what will now go to referendum. It will not go back out to consultation. I'm looking up at the screen at Ms Reeves to correct me if I get any of this wrong. So what will go to referendum is what is there. There is an opportunity in the major modifications to the Surrey Heath Borough Council local plan for residents have their say in spring when we go out to the consultation on those main modifications. So there is an opportunity to influence designation of green spaces, but not in this process. That is in the process that will come out in the spring. And again, I look up at the screen to tell me if I've got any of that wrong.
Ms Reeves.
Thank you, Councillor Ashbury. As always, very eloquently put and pretty much spot on. Just one point I do want to clarify is that the local green space designation in the Chobham Neighbourhood Plan is a slightly different designation to the designation in the Surrey Heath local plan. They've got similar names, but they have different criteria to meet in accordance with national policy. So they're not the same designation in both plans. They are different designations, but you're completely accurate in saying that there will be an opportunity to comment on the main modifications to the local plan, which includes the local plan inspector's recommendation to delete the designation of the Broom Lane allotments and the Red Line allotments.
Okay, thank you. Any other points? Councillor Garrett.
Who knew I'd be speaking on the Chobham Neighbourhood Plan? Just two quick...
I was a little bit shocked.
just two things. Going back to the voting thing, which Councillor Rise brought up. What happens if no one votes? Which doesn't sound like very likely, bearing on what's just happened in the chamber, but is there a minimum number of votes we have to have? Which I'm guessing not. And the second question was, where does the money come from for the funds of this £6,500 that is being funded for the Chobham Neighbourhood Plan?
Comes from the grant from the government.
It comes from a grant?
Yeah, from the £20,000 from the grant from the government.
Brilliant. So the rest of Surrey Heath isn't paying for Chobham?
No, we're not paying for a penny of this. Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for that.
Okay. Councillor McIntyre's also got a view on the Chobham Neighbourhood Plan. Okay. How many votes, please, Councillor Ashbury?
I think the guidance says a majority of those who vote. I think that is what the guidance says. There is no minimum number. It doesn't have to. And again, correct me if I get this wrong.
Mr. Bartlett's going to correct you.
Right.
Not a correction. I think it's described as 50% plus one, so over half.
But it's not a minimum of 10% of the population or anything like that. It is just of those who vote.
So that means 3 then, if my maths work out correctly. Yeah, 3. Yeah, 3 is the minimum number. Yeah. Right. Let's move on. Councillor McIntyre.
Sorry, this is going to be a really boring question after all the rest of them we've just had. we talk about the neighbourhood plan receiving 25% of the community infrastructure levy collected in the neighbourhood area. Is that going forward or retrospective?
My understanding is it's from the adoption of that, or when the plan's made, is my understanding, but I'm sure Ms Rees will correct me if I'm wrong.
Councillor Tedder, please.
Sorry to come in again, Mr Chairman. The allotments in reference are being used as allotments, so I don't know where the idea is that they're not. I don't know if anybody
Just on a point of order,
I mean, I've got
excuse me.
Yeah.
It's just a similar point that I
Yeah,
raised.
it is.
This is not a relevant point to the decision that we're making tonight.
Agreed. So, Councillor Tedder, do you have any comments specifically on the paper in front of us?
Only that the inspector went and looked at them, thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Very good. Right, so we're going to move on. Again, just to thank all those involved. I seem to remember, and actually, it may have been in your mayoral year, Councillor Tedder, the year of the flood at the Chobham Fair. Was that the one where you were mayor, where it was raining like cats and dogs all day? Yeah. Anyway, I think Councillor Kennedy was out manning a stall to inform people of what this process was and how it would work and everything else. So there has been quite a lot of work that's gone into this in climate weather. I seem to remember she had a neck brace on at the time. So lots of people have put lots of work into this. It's very much what we believe in terms of pushing authority and empowering our local communities. So are we happy with the recommendation as it stands? Agreed. Thank you. Hopefully, this one will be slightly less controversial, and I'm not even sure who's got it. Lightwater Leisure Centre. Councillor Finnan-Cook, over to you.
This shouldn't be controversial at all, actually, Leader. This should be a nice, simple one. Basically, the paper proposes to increase the demise of the lease for Lightwater Leisure Centre to include an additional area of car parking. The paper sets out the reasons for doing so and also specifies costs that will be saved by Surrey Heath Borough Council. And I would very much like you to approve this paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on it? Anybody? No. Councillor White, up in the gods. Please, Councillor White.
Up in the gods, never had that before. On this paper, it says that the handing over of this piece of land removes the obligation for Surrey Heath Borough Council to maintain and repair the space. Does this mean that there will never be any charges on this space? And would that be up to the leisure centre, or would Surrey Heath still have a say in that? Car parking charges, sorry.
Favourite topic for this chamber. Who wants to answer that one?
I can answer it. Sorry, Councillor White, I assumed you meant the car parking charges. There will be no car parking charges introduced on that land.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just check, because this links to the works that are potentially foreseen, is the works on the bottom end of the road and envisaged to be done at the same time? And is that in the next quarter? Do you know from memory? Yeah, broadly we're saying in the next quarter, are we? Yeah, so before, for argument's sake, before the summer. Yeah, right, great, thank you. I mean, it's not connected to this decision, but it's sort of indirectly connected to the decision. So, I mean, first of all, this is fantastic. The team at the Lightwater Playing Association Playfields Association does a great job with the team up there at the Leisure Centre, very popular. They have effectively expanded out their footprint. It's great that that's happened. It's brought some more vibrancy. It has, however, left its toll on the car park and surrounding areas. We'll be addressing that. Would be much better for everybody concerned. It reduces the council's liability, so I think this is a nice piece of business for us to see here today. But as Councillor White rightly highlights, it will, whilst the question around, it will continue to be first come, first serve, free for all to use. So that is brilliant for the people who want to walk the dog or do whatever they want to do, walk up and down Curly Hill, and it's also great for the people who want to get a bit of exercise as well. So, or play football or rugby or whatever they're doing up there. I think from memory, Is it Councillor Wheeler sometimes plays netball there? Was that correct? Have I got that right? Anyway, I'm sure she'll correct me at some point if I got that wrong. So, are we happy with the recommendation as it stands? Agreed. Brilliant. Again, thank you to all involved in bringing that forward. Financial monitoring report Q3. I have a suspicion this is like the third bite of the cherry on this one, because half a bite at audit standards of risk, half a bite at P&F, and we get another bite here. Councillor McIntyre, is there much more you want to say on this one that you haven't said anywhere else?
Yes. Actually, we've only really done it once and a half before, P&F, and then a slightly different report at ASR. I'll spare you after that introduction then, okay, fine. You've all seen the numbers. The budget for 26-27 is obviously built off the back of our predicted outturn for 25-26. As I've already said, as part of the budget item, the reserves position at the end of the year will be tight, with only about £500,000 left in the general fund. There's some interesting numbers around interest payable and receivable in here, with 7 million payable and receivable of about 700,000. But yes, essentially, our cost of services are coming in under budget, thanks to all the hard work of the officers to reduce non-essential spend and anything where we can save costs. So the procurement function has done a massive, brilliant job in terms of safeguarding our spend. CapEx is down from the working budget of 17.5 million, which we are projecting to be 8 million. So lots of variation in the numbers, but as I say, all have come through in the annual budget setting for the next financial year. And before the leader steals my thank you to the finance team again, I will say thank you very much to Mr. Bradford and the finance team for all their hard work. They're a joy to work with, so I'm actually going to be quite upset that I'm not doing budget again next year. Sort of upset, anyway, working with the team. But seriously, thank you to everyone for all the hard work in terms of both the monitoring, but also then all the hard work around the auditors and the challenging questions that they get from all the councillors. And a wider thank you to the officers for supporting the challenging situations that we have put them in when we have been asking for less of a spend and more income. Any questions?
Councillor Garrett, then Councillor Ashbury.
I've got just one question, and I think I might have alluded to it at P&F, but as Mr. Bartlett's here, I'm going to ask it. And I know the planning team do a lot of work and they're very busy. There is a concerning figure here that the forecast shortfall in planning application income is £610,000. I'm assuming there's, if I can say it, contributing factors to that. I'd just be interested to hear what they are and what obviously we're planning to try and recoup some of that.
I'm very happy to cover that. So nationally, there has been a downturn in the number of planning applications. When you look at Surrey Heath, the specific reason why income is lower is because we're getting less major applications, and the majority of income actually comes from those major applications. Across Surrey, that isn't quite the same picture, but it's because of predominantly speculative greenbelt development in other authorities. So where there has been an increase, or an increase, say, in income, it has been because of speculative greenbelt development. In some cases, in the thousands of homes over the last year since the NPPF changed in 2024. So it's an unusual situation because we have one of the most permissive systems in place, but at the moment, nationally, the number of applications is down. But I can see Councillor Ashby wants to come in, so I'll stop for a moment.
I just wanted to just make a couple of comments. Like Mr. Bartlett, I see in the news across Surrey most days pitchforks outside villages with proposals for hundreds of new homes. But I think it's a fact that since the new government gave its target of 1.5 million extra homes, fewer planning applications are actually being passed than previously. Now, a lot of planning functions across the country are or had geared up for the increase that was expecting. And I think we were well placed a little over a year ago to cope with the extra demand we were expecting, and it just hasn't come through, particularly on the majors. It's not saying that it won't, because as I say, if you look at what's going on across Surrey at the moment, there's lots of speculative developers putting plans in. I think we're probably not as high up their list as some other councils, but I think we will be. So whilst it's a worry, we're hoping that some of that will offset. If it doesn't and we have a structural issue, we may have to look at restructuring the service. But at the moment, it just hasn't been forthcoming what we expected. Fair.
Did you have, because I had you down on the list as well, so
yes.
do you want to?
I have a couple of, I'm not sure whether they're questions or statements. The £100,000 we've got in for LGR that we're forecasting for the year, can we recharge that anywhere, or do we just have to take that one on the chin?
If you mean by can it be funded from anywhere, we can use capital receipts for that as its sort of transformation if we have capital receipts that are available to use.
Okay, so it's currently showing on the revenue line, but if we had capital receipts, we could use that to fund that. Okay, thank you for that one. And the leader alluded to it earlier, my question on theatre. Just over 2 years ago in this chamber, the then portfolio holder assured me that we were on track to achieve a cost-neutral offering for the theatre. We're 2 years on, the costs don't seem to be changing to the council, and I notice in the MTFS we're projecting that that continues despite capital investment and so on. I know I've said it before, I do think we do need to have a look at what we are doing with our theatre, and I'd like to put that on a future discussion if we may. Thank you.
Just to come in on the theatre expenditure, Councillor Ashbury, that's obviously something that we've been discussing as an officer group. We will provide a briefing to yourself and other members of the executive shortly. We're just finalising the slides for that, so you will get a better understanding of the capital expenditure and where we think we are in terms of the level of subsidy. Thank you.
And I think subsequent to that, would it not emerge in the update to PNF that I think it's just been rescheduled for April? April. Yeah, April, I think. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, April, yeah. Okay, but there would be transparency for other councils, yeah, in due course, but we'll have first look at it if that's okay with everybody. Councillor Rowlands, I think you had something, thank you.
Yeah, going right on to the appendix, there's a reference here to 200,000, am I right? Which is for Ukrainian assistance. It just looks as though it's going into a pocket somewhere, or it's just going to disappear. I just wondered if there's any thoughts that it could be more profitably used, bearing in mind the reports from Ukraine. People there are suffering quite dreadfully. And I'm just wondering whether there might be a more positive way of using that money.
I think it's getting reallocated back, is that right, into reserve somewhere, or? Yeah, well, maybe you'd like to comment on it, Councillor, maybe before I keep fluffing my lines here, in terms of what's going on with that particular item, is that okay?
Yeah, that money is specifically ring-fenced. So if it'll be going into a specific reserve for future spend, So it does get allocated specifically against that category. It doesn't go against any other service at all.
Thank you, and it's good that you noted the fact that the Ukrainians are still under pressure. Thank you for doing that, and I think everybody in the chamber stands in solidarity with them in that regard, particularly through this winter period. But I don't think there's a specific action at the moment for us in terms of allocating funds from that reserve. If something comes up, we'll do it. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? No. Are we happy to agree to that as it stands? Thank you. Can one of the officers just keep me straight here? I'm reading this next item, procurement of a new security provider. Is there elements of this are exempt or not? I wasn't too sure. There is. It's that final sheet, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Right. So if members could just be cognizant of that. So that final sheet, which I think talks about hourly rates and everything else, if we could just keep away from that, that would be appreciated. But are there any other questions on this procurement of a new security provider? Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Councillor Ashbury has a spiel he wants to deliver. So please, deliver your spiel.
Thank you very much. So this paper seeks to bring all security activities under one contract. Until recently, it's been spread across all the individual portfolios, and all of those are currently out of contract and facing potential price increases. So the proposal is to enter into a new contract which gives us some certainty around costs going forward and represents a saving on what we're currently paying for these services. A full tendering process has been carried out and the recommended supplier is detailed in the annex that is in part 2.
Thank you. Councillor Garrett, please.
Just a very brief question, clarification. This doesn't include the CCTV, does it? I mentioned CCTV, but it's the operation of that rather than the actual CCTV. Oh, crikey. CCTV itself, yes?
Yes, it doesn't cover the actual CCTV, but I believe it would cover some of the monitoring. Mr. Burns is on the call if there's any correction that's needed there.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Burns, do you want to just come in and clarify that? Because I see you've been waiting patiently to support us in this.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Yes, you're quite right. The CCTV monitoring of the Main Square car park and Knoll Road car park comes within this contract, but the public realm CCTV monitoring does not.
Yeah, just for members, because we're muttering to ourselves here, just for members' information, that's a separate, the public realm stuff separate, but it is imminently going to go live following decisions we've made, and obviously LGR being clarified as well. Yeah. Anything else from anybody on this one? No, again, thank you to Councillor Garrett as Chair of P&F for his flexibility on this. I think the numbers just ticked up, and it took it over a threshold. So thank you for that, and thank you for the officers that have worked on it. If there's no other questions, are we happy to go ahead as recommended?
Agreed.
Agreed, thank you. So we do need to say goodbye to our adoring public now and exclude them. There is a whole set of words, but are we happy to agree the resolution to exclude the public from the discussion of item 14?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay.